NFL Week 9 is upon us, and we're bringing our pick'em and predictions for this next slate of games in the NFL. We're really excited to bring this content to you. We've been doing it all year long, and we're continuing in here in this video. If you guys do enjoy what you see in today's video, please hit that like button. It lets us know we're doing a good job here at Utility Sports with all the work we're putting in, and also hit that subscribe button if you'd like to see more content just like this. Check out some of the other channels, or some of the other videos on the channel, as well, because I really recommend some of the other stuff we post, like the AP Top 25 for college football. We also talk about a lot of the NBA and some of the other NFL stuff going on. We have some trade videos up on the channel because this is the week of the trade deadline. Obviously, we're about to pass it here. The deadline is Thursday. This video is coming out on Monday. So there's going to be a lot of news breaking here in the next couple of days. And let's get into it here now, Austin, with our pick'em records. And you guys can tell last couple of weeks have not been kind to me. I actually was knotted up even with Austin, and things fell apart for me. I'm down 5 games at this point. Austin jokingly, he was serious before the video started, but he said, well, Sheldon, you get to present your perfect picks. There's been nothing perfect about my pick. And you can tell the guy here, though, with 71 picks correct at this point, and one tie that would have made it 72 picks correct, because obviously he would have been right about that one too had they not tied. He's just been immensely better than me. No surprise there. If you guys watched last year, you knew this was coming. So let's get into it this week and see his perfect picks as we go through it. Teams on bye week. These are teams that aren't going to lose this week, which is good news for Pittsburgh. It's good news for Cleveland as they get 1 week closer to having Deshaun Watson be their starting quarterback. The New York Giants are on here as well. Obviously, they've been such a Cinderella story this season. The Niners on here as well. Looks like Christian McCaffrey's an awesome fit. The Denver Broncos get a win, obviously, this past week. Russell Wilson probably doing high knees throughout the bye week. And then the Dallas Cowboys as well, with Tony Pollard really being the man of the team right now with that 3 touchdown performance. So these 6 teams are going to have nice weeks to kind of rest up their bodies and get ready for their next game. And now we get into Thursday night football here, Austin, where, guys, I'm right. I have the same pick as Austin here, and it's not hard to pick pick with the 7-0 Philadelphia Eagles and against the Houston Texans, Austin. Even though this game's in Houston, NRG Stadium, why are the Eagles just the easy, safe, right selection here at this spot?
The Texans have yet to find their stride offensively. What has been working has been Dameon Pierce on the ground. What has not been working is Davis Mills trying to throw the ball in any capacity. Just not enough playmakers on this team. They're trying to move Brandon Cooks right now. I think that this team is, definitely in a position where they're going to have to figure things out for next season. I think we've kind of moved on to that point. But maybe there's some bright spots that pop up the rest of the year that they can build on going into next year. But a lot of what's happening here is just building upon for the future.
I do like where the Texans are at when you look at their long-term viewpoint. Obviously, trading Deshaun Watson was a real good springboard for them. They also have Laramie Tunsil still on the roster. I don't think a move's going to get done this year, but maybe into the offseason we could see him get moved for some first-round picks. We know he's going to be a hot name to talk about. The Texans just haven't gotten it going this year. The Eagles have been the best team in the NFC. And I think, this is probably the safest, easiest selection throughout all of football. Obviously, a short week makes it a little bit less predictable. But at the end of the day, I think the Eagles just have too much offensive firepower for Houston to keep up in this one. The Sunday slate now, when we look at this collection of games, there's a lot of good ones in here and a lot of really impactful games, especially when we look at the playoff race. There's a lot of teams right now trying to make a push. And 2 teams right here that are trying to make a push. The Los Angeles Chargers, who've been, I would say, very disappointing this year. It feels like almost the whole AFC West has been, to a certain extent, minus the Kansas City Chiefs, who really had little expectations on them after trading Tyreek Hill. Chargers, they need to get a win here, but they're going up against the number 1 team in the NFC South right now, and I don't think it's one we would have predicted in the Atlanta Falcons. Kyle Pitts got involved this past week, obviously had a big day for himself. And the Falcons, they've been rolling, and for that reason, I'm riding with them. I think the Falcons at home presents a tough challenge for Los Angeles. Arthur Smith, we've been singing his praises, Austin, the last year and a half now at this point. We think he's a phenomenal coach. We like that hire a lot for Atlanta, and we think he's going to be someone that continues to get the most out of this team, even though the talent maybe isn't always there. Marcus Mariota has been competitive this year, which I think is a real blessing for that team, because I don't think a lot of people expected that. Just because of how good of a coach Arthur Smith is, I think that the Falcons get it done here at home. Austin, why do you like the Chargers, though, in this one?
I just think that Justin Herbert's going to, have a good game. Atlanta is a team that, defense is not the strong suit of this roster. I like what the Chargers have offensively. Keenan Allen being healthy this week is going to be a big plus. Austin Eckler should have another huge week. He's been a phenomenal asset for this offense, not only running the football, but also catching passes out of the backfield. They present a lot of challenges here. I also think, the Chargers pass rush should get home here against the Atlanta Falcons. So Despite them being on the road and, Atlanta being kind of this, little Cinderella story that we have going on in that NFC South, I do believe the Chargers are the better football team and can win on the road.
Yeah, I definitely think that when you look at their team, they do have more talent there for sure. We'll see what they get from Austin Eckler. Obviously, he's been a touchdown machine the last second half here of the first half of the season. So, the second quarter essentially of the year, he's been money for that Chargers team. And I think the Falcons, they've been kind of riding the hot hand as well. It's going to be a good matchup to watch this week for sure. Going into our next game now, we look at a matchup here between the Miami Dolphins, the Chicago Bears, heading into Soldier Field. We've seen the Bears pull out some tough wins this year. I just don't think this is one of them. The Dolphins, they're just too dynamic. Jalen Waddle is the perfect complementary number 2 receiver in the NFL. Basically, every single team would love to have him, even as their number 1, a lot of them would. And he's the number 2 there in Miami. And we know what Tyreek Hill's done for them. Austin, all offseason long, we talked about how good of a deal that was for Miami. We also thought the Chiefs, hey, they're still in a pretty strong position with Mahomes and Kelsey, and that's played out as well. But Miami, I mean, Tyreek Hill over 960 yards, 69 catches at this point of the year as well. He's on pace to surpass 2,000 yards and 140 catches, which is just monumental, insane. He's putting up so many numbers. How many yards does he go for in this game? And do the Bears even have a shot here?
Yeah, I think the Bears' shot here is them being at home, a little bit tougher of an environment to play in at Soldier Field. But I also look at the Miami Dolphins as being too dynamic on offense for the Bears to really keep pace here. The Bears have found a little bit of offensive rhythm with Justin Fields, allowing him to be a little bit more free, a little more design quarterback runs, really seeing a spike in production, especially in the rushing department for him. But I think overall they kind of have a nice formula. However, Miami's just going to outpace them. Having Tua back has been big for this offense. I mean, you look at the production with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Mike Gesicki. This is a dangerous group of playmakers, and I think they should once again get the job done on the road.
Heading into this matchup, Justin Fields has 238 more passing yards than Tyreek Hill has receiving yards. I think that's really the telltale sign here between the differences between these offenses. And for me, it's just going to be too much firepower for Chicago to overcome, just like we talked about earlier. Moving into our next game here, we look at the Carolina Panthers, who, hey, they've been playing hard and they've been playing pretty well for Steve Wilkes as of late. They've had some dynamite performances actually the last couple of weeks. Deontay Foreman as well, 3 touchdown game today. The day we're recording this, he absolutely balled out as well. But Cincinnati, they've kind of gotten back on track, even with Jamar Chase missing some time here. Are you panicked at all about where the Bengals are? Obviously, they still have, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. They've still got some playmakers, Joe Mixon as well in there. Joe Burrow's been playing great football as late as well. So, Austin, I see you picked the Bengals here. Obviously, Panthers are not the greatest team for them to be facing at this spot. Are you concerned at all about the next couple of weeks for Cincy, or do you think they cruise through this one?
A lot of teams, if a Jamar Chase injury happened to them, it would kind of sink their season ultimately. But I think with the Cincinnati Bengals, they have enough playmakers on the perimeter to go ahead and keep going here. T. Higgins is an absolute stud. You're going to see a lot more volume with him. Tyler Boyd's going to be a lot more involved in the offense, and they're just going to be running the football more in general with Joe Mixon. I think this is going to be a kind of a balanced attack here moving on forward. The Cincinnati Bengals, once again, they've been proving people wrong at the start of the year. Everyone was hitting that panic button. A lot of people saying, shy away from the Bengals. This offensive line can't handle it. Joe Burrow is under duress too much. He's not making enough big plays. Well, sure enough, last couple of weeks, it's been the complete opposite story here. Bengals offensive line is still suspect in my opinion. However, they've done a better job getting the ball out on time and not looking for the big play as often. So I'm still riding with the Bengals here. In our pick'em, we've kept up the confidence in them for most of the whole season. And, it's starting to pay dividends here.
Yeah, it definitely has. They definitely picked up their play. And Carolina, they might be an interesting team to watch this week as well with that Thursday trade deadline. A lot of players on their team potentially could get moved. DJ Moore obviously had a big week in week 8. You also look at guys like Brian Burns, whose name's been circulating for maybe 2 first-round picks. Derek Brown, a former top 5 overall selection, could potentially get moved as well at some point. There's a lot of names there to watch. Something might get done. Maybe nothing gets done, but we'll keep our eyes on Carolina here on the channel as well. Moving into our next game here, we're looking at a matchup in the NFC North and one that's actually really pivotal at this point for the Green Bay Packers. And I would label it a must-win game. And it's a game I don't see them winning. They go into Detroit here. Divisional opponents always play you tougher. We've seen that in some games for the Minnesota Vikings this year. Obviously, the Lions and Bears both played Minnesota rather competitively. And I think the Lions are going to do that here to Green Bay. And I think they're even going to steal one at Ford Field. They have an advantage here to me, simply just being at home, and it's a divisional game. I tend to prefer the team at home in divisional matchups. And for me here, the Packers just haven't been super impressive. Jair Alexander has taken a noticeable step back this year from where he was at the past 2 seasons. I think that's a big reason why they've struggled a little bit more. And with Detroit, if they can hit you with the play action, which I think they're going to go to a ton in this game, and if they can get some in-breaking routes across the middle of the field, I think they have an advantage here against Green Bay. And Green Bay, their wide receiver play has been questionable. They're another team to watch for the trade deadline. Austin, do the Packers make a move here before this game? And what do you think about the Packers' chances in this one?
They're going to make a move for an established veteran wide receiver, whether that be Brandon Cooks, whether that be, Chase Claypool. They're looking for a guy to come in and make a spark in this wide receiver room. And the reason I am sticking with the Packers here, I really think that they're going to gash Detroit in the run game. Now, when you look at Detroit's defense, definitely have struggled so far this season. Their offense has been pretty good. A lot to like on the offensive side, but defensively definitely have some overall issues. You look at Aaron Jones, you look at AJ Dillon. I think those two could be absolutely huge in this game. And I think Green Bay, maybe this is one of those get right games. And we keep saying that about Tampa Bay and Green Bay. Eventually, we got to see them return to at least the mean of what they should be. However, we have not seen that turnaround yet. At some point in time, there's got to be a correctional game. And I think this very well could be it for Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers historically has played very, very well at Ford Field. And that's why I give the edge to the Packers.
Right. This year, Aaron Rodgers, it's been a struggle for him. One of the lowest yards per attempt he's ever had in his career. He's not completing a ton of his deep balls. Actually, he's ranked 33rd in the NFL right now in deep ball completion. So there's a lot of question marks for this Packers team. Like you said, though, Austin, a receiver likely is coming in the doors. I would agree with you on that as well. And maybe that could be something that does pivot this game in my perspective. But at this point, I like Detroit at home. Moving into our next one now, we're looking at a matchup between two teams that, hey, they started the year kind of different ways, but they've kind of found themselves now at the same spot where they're kind of looking into their division. Obviously, the Jaguars started hot. The Raiders started cold. Maybe Raiders started to get a little bit of steam, kind of lost it, though. I'm going with the Raiders here in Jacksonville. I didn't really like picking this game. You guys both know I tend to like picking Jacksonville. I just couldn't do it this week. I'm just kind of split between these two teams. I think it's going to be a 3-point game. It's going to be an ugly one where I think the Raiders just have a slight advantage in terms of the actual star power on their roster. Obviously, you look at a guy like Devontae Adams. We'll see if Darren Waller can go in this one. Did not play in week 8. And then also Josh Jacobs, who's been balling out for a good majority of this season. I think that he might be destined for a big game here against Jacksonville's front seven. And Austin, for you went with your Jaguars, something you typically don't do. What do you like about this matchup for them?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten pretty much every Jaguar game wrong this year, so I'm going to keep hopefully on that train with this one. Once again, Jacksonville, after watching that game against Denver, there were some big positives actually coming out of that game. And that's something that I'm not used to saying, but Travis Etienne looked phenomenal in that game. Pretty much the entire duration, he was averaging about 8 yards per carry, just absolutely dicing up that Denver defense, which is not something we've seen much from that defense. They're a very solid unit. And, I have some questions once again about this Raiders offensive line. I think Trayvon Walker, I think Josh Allen and Arden Key are going to get after Derek Carr. Derek Carr had one of his worst performances of the entire season, against New Orleans, very recently here. But, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a close game. I only am taking Jacksonville because I just, believe in the Raiders slightly less. Two teams I'm not excited about, but overall, maybe give the edge to the Jags since they are at home.
Right. I think this is one of the toughest games to pick this week. You just never really know what you're getting from either team. Some weeks, Trevor Lawrence nearly has a perfect passer rating, and some weeks he just loses the football randomly. And for the Raiders, you'd think, hey, this team is super good. They have a lot of talent there. And then Derek Carr forgets how to play quarterback for 3/4 of a game, or, the defense just can't get a stop. Stuff just goes wrong for these two teams. So it's a really hard game to pick. Our next one now, though, we look at a matchup between the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots. Patriots here at 4-4. They're in kind of a win now spot where if they win, say the Jets don't win, they find themselves maybe right back in the divisional race. Obviously, the AFC East has been really good this year, which is no surprise from the top 3 teams. I think the Jets are a surprise to everybody at this point. But here at this spot, I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts. I like the ground game here. And the one thing for me is New England struggled to kind of piece together wins this year. And I think a big reason why is the quarterback play. You just don't really know what you're getting week in, week out from Mac Jones. Obviously, a few weeks ago, we saw Bailey Zappi. I just don't trust Mac Jones as far as I can throw him. And trust me, I can't throw him very far. So for me, I don't like the New England Patriots very much this season. I just have a lot of concerns about them. But Austin, you are riding with the Patriots here. Obviously, Foxborough is a tough place to go into. Does that weigh into your decision at all?
Oh, 100%. Once again, another trash game to try to decide between, because inconsistency across the board from both of these organizations this year. It's very hard to pinpoint on a given week what this New England offense is going to look like. Whether it's coming from production at the quarterback spot, are the receivers going to generate enough separation? There's just not a lot of constants on this offense that gets me excited. And Indianapolis as well, a huge disappointment so far this season for us. A team that was thought to make a huge playoff push potentially with Matt Ryan, and then all of a sudden now that picture's murky. I'm not loving the outlook of the Indianapolis Colts. I'm taking the Patriots. They play well at home historically, and that's really a big factor in why I did take them here.
I think right now is a good time to shout out the Atlanta Falcons for fleecing not one, but two AFC South teams out of second rounders. You look back at the trade of Julio Jones to Tennessee, and they said, hey, a year later, we'll come back and get Indianapolis with the Matt Ryan deal. Obviously, Atlanta's sitting pretty after those two trades, and maybe Tennessee, Indianapolis trying to rethink things after some of those moves. Going into the next matchup here, we're looking at a game between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. And Austin, I'm kind of surprised here because you've been, very verbal with me about riding with the Jets all year long. For those of you who do not know, I am a New York Jets fan. You see the helmet right there in the background. Austin's been hyping up the Jets for me. And as a true Jets loyalist, of course, I'm a hater on the team, and I just don't think we're that good. And Austin, we both went with the Bills here. So I really want you to break it down on camera here. Maybe something I can clip later.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only reason I'm really going Buffalo here, I think that it's going to be a closer game than people anticipate. You look at Sauce Gardner against Stephon Diggs, one of the best cornerback wide receiver matchups of the entire season, in my opinion. That's high praise for Sauce Gardner, who's been a top three corner this year in terms of his overall production and how he's looked with the eye test. But Buffalo is just so solid defensively. Zach Wilson has struggled mightily this year. Trust me, I'm an owner of him in a dynasty fantasy football league. So I know what it's like week in and week out for where he's at. But once again, I just think that Buffalo is so solid defensively on all three levels of that defense. It's going through a lot of different looks at him. Leslie Frazier is he's good at disguising certain coverages to confuse a young quarterback. And I think, that doesn't really change here. The New York Jets are going to have a perfect game, in my opinion, to, be very, very competitive with the Bills.
Right. I think you nailed all the main points there. Leslie Frazier, he's been there, done that, former head coach for the Minnesota Vikings, but he's been a long tenured defensive coordinator. And I think he's the unsung hero right now in Buffalo. I know some people are giving him some credit, but not enough. He's someone who's going to be a hot name to watch for head coaching vacancies this offseason. And he deserves it because he's been phenomenal calling plays there and really coordinating everything for Buffalo defensively. Of course, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, those two guys get all the love for the offensive side of the ball, but it's a really well-rounded team. The Bills have been one of the best offenses and defenses in the NFL, which is why they're so good. It just makes them an easy pick, even on the road in a division game like this one against a team that's above 500. You still have to ride with Buffalo. And if you don't, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. Going into our next game here now, we're looking at the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Washington Commanders. And I just want to hit the rewind button here real quick, because about 4 years ago, everyone was freaking out about Kirk Cousins getting guaranteed money from the Minnesota Vikings. Well, look at the spot right now between these two franchises. Washington decided to go with Alex Smith, and now they have a huge hole at quarterback. Carson Wentz isn't the guy. Taylor Heineke, probably not the guy. Is Sam Howell the guy? We don't really know. Is Washington going to draft a QB? Minnesota has since extended Kirk Cousins, and he seems to be doing great pretty much every single year. Had a really nice touchdown run in week 8 here as well. And it's just been a phenomenal quarterback, honestly, for the Minnesota Vikings. Go check the stats. If you're a hater, he has a very similar year to Brett Favre as well in 2009, who's probably one of the best individual quarterback seasons for the Vikings in history. So again, if you're a hater, go check the numbers. They don't lie. And by the way, Kirk Cousins beat Drew Brees in New Orleans as well in a playoff game. So you can talk about that one too if you want to talk about clutch time. But here we're at the point where these two teams get to line up. Austin, you and I both went with the Vikings. Quarterback's better, running back's better, wide receiver one's better. The team is just better. Sorry, Commanders, you're not winning this game. I don't care that you're at home. Now I'm setting up the Vikings for a little bit of failure here at 6-1. But Austin, why are the Vikings going to win this one?
Dude, somebody's going to clip that and they're going to use that against you if Washington wins this football game. But, I love what the Vikings are able to do offensively. There's a lot of different things that they can do here. Justin Jefferson wins a lot of his one-on-ones on the outside if they dare do that. A lot of times you see that safety help on Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen kind of found some rhythm this past week. So hopefully they can get him going. KJ Osborne with a big touchdown this past week. That's a very nice complementary trio that they have. You also have Dalvin Cook, who's been running the football well, had his first 100-yard game. Overall, things are coming together for the Vikings. My only concern is pass protection. They were great in run blocking, but this past week had some issues with pass protection. Hopefully they're able to kind of shore up some things and have a good productive week here against Washington.
Right. I think that this is a game that if they win, they can really take a stronghold in that division. And with how many games ahead they are right now over Green Bay, every single time they can go out and get a win, they're doing themselves a huge favor for the end of the year where hey, if you get close with Green Bay and you have to go into Lambeau toward the end of the season, that becomes a really pivotal game. If you can keep your lead ballooned right now in that division, it's going to be really important for them going into the stretch of the season. Now, as we move into our next matchup here, we're looking at a game between, again, two division rivals here, the Seattle Seahawks. This time they head into Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Austin, we got a split decision. You're going Cardinals. I'm going Seahawks. Break down your perspective first.
Now, I think part of the reason why Arizona lost is they shot themselves in the foot multiple times against the Vikings. Muff punts, interceptions, just bonehead plays that they can easily clean up. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a matchup nightmare. But in this game, is Tariq Woolen going to see a ton of D-Hop? He's a guy that can match up with him physically, with not only his height and length, but also he's one of the fastest corners in the entire league. Seattle's done a great job, through the draft, especially this last year. Kenneth Walker has been an absolute superstar in the making. So a lot to like about Seattle, but at the same time, they are in Arizona. I think Kyler Murray is going to create some off-schedule plays that really change the trajectory of this football game. Hopefully, once again, they can get a little healthier. They were super banged up this week, but hopefully they're back on the right track against Seattle here. We have to start seeing Arizona, pick up some wins here. Otherwise, Cliff is out the door.
I think you made a great point here with that rookie class, and it shows how important the NFL draft is for some of these teams and how one draft can really change the complexion of your franchise. Think about where Seattle was, maybe 6 months ago, right when they were trading Russell Wilson. In the process of that, the future didn't look super bright for them. They hit pretty much all of their draft picks on draft night. And without Tariq Woolen, I probably would have easily picked the Cardinals here as well. But like you said, he matches up so well with Hopkins in terms of the physicals, which is rare for a cornerback to be able to match up with him. Not that Hopkins isn't going to get his, because I expect him to, but it's about making him work hard to get his. And I think he's going to have to this week. And I also look at Seattle. They have a real culture there in terms of, hey, we're going to work hard. Everyone's kind of counting us out. Of course, Geno Smith's really set the tone for that this year. And I just like everything that I'm seeing from them. Pete Carroll, I think, is going to outcoach Cliff Kingsbury here in this game. I think it's going to be a very narrow win for Seattle, something that comes down to the wire, maybe a 3-point victory on a game-winning field goal. But I like Seattle here a lot just because I think that, week in, week out, they're a team that gets slept on. I know they're going to be the underdogs in this one. And I think that they're going to have a chip on their shoulder here. And if they want to stay afloat in that division, this is going to be a pivotal must-win game for them, honestly, just with how San Francisco looks now at this point. And I think here, if they can get that done, Seattle's going to be in a really good spot moving forward. Our next game now is a game with the Los Angeles Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And surprisingly, we both go with the Buccaneers. I know some people are going to really have some questions about that because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers during the Brady divorce saga have just not looked good at football. In fact, they've really struggled offensively. The defense is good, but not as great as it needs to be to make up for some of the offensive woes that this team's been having. Austin, I'm really interested in your reasoning to go with Tampa here, and then I'll break down mine as well.
Yeah, and it's funny, when we were doing the pick 'em beforehand, I had previously selected the Bucs, and you also went with the Bucs. I was shocked because I felt that I was, definitely not in the majority selecting them. A lot of people are probably going to pick the Rams in this. However, Tampa Bay is at home, and I feel like Tom Brady is going to have a big revenge game. It's going to be on prime time. These two teams are hungry for a win, both, starting to sink a little bit in their respected divisions, which they were both expected to be the division winners. And at the same time, I think Tampa Bay has got to figure it out. There's got to be some changes fundamentally, especially with this offense. There's a lot of different things that are happening. The LA Rams, on the other hand, are a team that needs to figure out their rushing attack. So I have a lot of questions on both teams. However, I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with Tom Brady having to have a huge bounce back week. He's, got a lot of personal stuff going on, but on the football side of things, I think he can get the job done at home against, a very, very tough opponent that is also struggling this season.
Right. I think that's really what it comes down to me here is some of Los Angeles's struggle, something that maybe we didn't anticipate as much. You look at Matthew Stafford, he's actually been rather turnover prone the last couple of years, even despite winning a Super Bowl last year. He has turned the ball over at a pretty high rate. And for a Buccaneers defense, if they can be opportunistic and really set this offense up with short field, that's where they're going to have advantages. Of course, Stafford's throwing a few too many pick sixes this year, and Tampa's got some playmakers. So it's going to be pivotal for them. They need to get some takeaways, I think, to win this game. And that's what I'm banking on here at home. If they don't get it, the Rams are going to win. So it's not like I'm, obviously we're in agreement here that Tampa wins, but I don't think we think it's going to be in convincing fashion by any means. In fact, I'd be surprised if it is. I think it's going to come down to a few key plays, a few costly turnovers from Los Angeles that can maybe set up Tampa Bay. Austin, you talked about the struggling run game. If Stafford has to throw the ball 50 times in this one, I'd feel pretty confident that Tampa Bay can maybe get their hands on one or two of those that could really set this offense up for success. And these are two teams as well. I want to talk about this real quick as well with those two teams and just the Odell sweepstakes here. The Rams probably in the sweepstakes. Tampa Bay's maybe in the sweepstakes. Green Bay as well. The Buffalo Bills. And then even the Minnesota Vikings with the Kevin O'Connell connection. Austin, does Odell Beckham land with a team here before the trade deadline? When do you expect him to sign, and where would you look at him opting to go? Maybe even the New York Giants with a reunion.
I think what's going to happen, his agent is going to advise him to wait until after the deadline. When teams don't get the receiver they want on the trade market, then that's when there's going to be the highest leverage for Odell and his camp. I believe as soon as the trade deadline's over, the teams that are panicking are going to go ahead and give him the most possible money. I think that's kind of the direction that it's heading right now.
Right. And if you're thinking about it from a team perspective, the earlier you can get him in, the better off you are, because you're going to be able to get him the playbook earlier, get him into your system. And then hopefully by playoff time, he's kind of fully up to speed and really ready to contribute to you, because you'd have to assume he's going to go to a team with a good chance to at least make the postseason. Our next matchup now, and it's a good one. Sunday night, we've got the Tennessee Titans who, hey, they've figured things out. Crazy statistic on Derrick Henry. I believe his last 4 games against the Houston Texans have all been 200+ yard games on the ground, which is insane. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, they've just been handling business like usual. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce's been awesome this year. And they're still really good. You and I did not sound the alarms on them. And I think here, Sunday night primetime, when the lights are brightest, the Kansas City Chiefs usually play their best. And I don't expect anything different from them, Austin. What are some key matchups you're watching here, and how do they limit King Henry on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a huge focus from Kansas City stacking the box. Therefore, it's going to have to be the playmakers on the outside for Tennessee that are going to have to generate some separation. And at the end of the day, Kansas City has the ability to stop the run. They're going to be very, very focused on it. But once again, Tennessee has been able to find a lot of different ways to win. And, good for them, because they had a very, very slow start to the season. Now, once again, they found their formula, running the football, sticking true to that. And I think that, definitely gives them a chance in this game. If Derrick Henry has another, terrific performance, it's going to set up some big time play action. And ultimately, that's where Tennessee can really start to hurt you, is all of a sudden your linebackers are flowing to the side of the running back where the play's heading. And then boom, they hit you with that play action, because you have to commit so many bodies to stopping the run that you're not able to, leave some excess guys out. All hands on deck at the end of the day. And I think that's what's going to be the huge difference here, is Kansas City is going to have to stop the run. And once again, they're going to be phenomenal through the air like they always are. But once again, I have a lot of confidence in the Chiefs. And I think that picking them on a primetime game, most cases, does you very well.
It's pretty incredible to me, the narrative on running backs and how easily replaceable they are. But when you look at some of the top guys, the Derrick Henrys, Christian McCaffreys of the world, most D coordinators lose their hair because of these types of players. Kansas City, Steve Spagnuolo, they got their hands full with this one. But again, we expect them to get it done with the offense that they have, and also just the variety of looks they're going to give them defensively as well. It'll be a fun matchup, but I think Kansas City, again, gets it done. Moving into Monday night, and we've got a fun game here, and a game between two teams that have been kind of up, kind of down this year. Baltimore a little bit more up than down, and the Saints a little bit more down than up. at this point. We both ride with the Ravens here. Heading into New Orleans, again, it's a tough place to play. Again, it's not an easy game to pick. But when you look at Lamar, you look at the weapons that Baltimore has, specifically Mark Andrews, who's one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end in the NFL at this point. You got to love their weapons in comparison to where New Orleans is at with their quarterback situation. Of course, Andy Dalton's been playing a ton while Jameis missed some time. Austin, is kind of the quarterback really the biggest part in this matchup?
I think part of it's the quarterback play. New Orleans definitely surprised me with how well they played against the Raiders. Defensively, they were absolutely clamping Derek Carr. They were not giving him any time to throw, force him into some mistakes. So, once again, promising on the New Orleans Saints side. They played super well. But once again, Baltimore, I feel like they can string together some key wins. This would be a big one on the road going against the Saints on prime time. Lamar Jackson should have a big game, despite this New Orleans team, being able to stop the run, especially Lamar Jackson, is going to provide a very difficult matchup for them. At the end of the day, I think Baltimore has to get another win in there, string together some wins, and really give them a fair shot at this division.
Right, the AFC North right now kind of shaken down toward the end of the season. We're going to see a lot of competitive football from that division like we always do. Hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe for more NFL content. Again, we really appreciate you watching. Let us know your picks down in the comment section. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. Smash that like button if you enjoyed, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.